Back to another shiur in the series of Money Matters. Today, after discussing Onah in the previous couple of shiurim, the problem of overcharging, I want to talk about profit margins. We'll talk a little bit about honesty in business dealings, and we'll maybe even, if we have time, get into the subject of a mekach ta'ut, of a faulty sale, an invalid sale because of a defect in the product. That's going to be a subject that's going to take a couple of shiurim to finish. This shiur, like all the shiurim, is Leilu Nishmat Rachel Leah bat Reb Chaim Tzvi. And let's get started. The first thing we must understand is that everything we've been talking about until now, in the past couple of shiurim about Onah, about overcharging, has got nothing to do with profit margins. There, in everything we discussed in Onah, is that you have to set your price according to the market price. You can't charge more than the market price. But how much profit you can make, that has not been discussed. That's not got nothing to do with the question of Onah. Today we're going to talk a little bit about profit margins. Now we must remember, when we talk about profit margins, about what type of profit is roy for a person to make, let's remember that the Gemarot and the Shulchan Aruch is talking, and the Shulchan Aruch says this clearly. In the times when Beit Din had power to control prices. At the time when Beit Din had power to control prices, then there were controls on the amount of profit that people could make. Those are all the sugyas that we find in the Gemara and the halachas in Shulchan Aruch about a limit on the amount of profit. Let's cover those halachot quickly. The Shulchan Aruch tells us that for food products, for essential food products, that would be things like milk, flour, sugar, essential things, you shouldn't make more than a sixth profit. Now, you're right, it's the same figure, a sixth, that we spoke about in Onah, but it's got nothing to do with overcharging, it's got nothing to do with Onah. This is a totally new halacha. In essential food products, the fitting profit to be made is a sixth. With non-essential food products, that's sort of everything else. The example that the Gemara gives is spices. There you can make up to double, up to 100% profit. Depends from which end you start from, as any businessman knows. Double you get your expenses, double them. That's the amount of profit you're allowed to make. There are some opinions that say that with these products too, you shouldn't be making more than a sixth. Well, with non-food products, clothing, furniture, we find no limit on the amount of profit that you're allowed to make. Of course, the calculation of this sixth, or the double, is after taking into account all expenses. On top of that, you can add another sixth. Now, as we said, there's an obligation on Beit Din to control prices, to be involved in the marketplace, to make sure that people aren't overpricing and aren't making too much profit at the expense of the consumer, of course. The consumer is important, as is important that they make profit. Yeah? We're not talking about not communists and not too capitalist. It's the Torah in the middle. Now, in our time, when Beit Din do not control prices, so it says clearly in the poskim that therefore there is no limit on the profits. I mean, you don't have to be the guy that's going to sell everything cheaper than everyone else because you see that it's, you should be charging more than a sixth, getting more than a sixth profit, when everyone else in the market is making much bigger profits. You don't. If Beit Din are not controlling the prices, then there's no limit. You can do what everyone else is doing. You can do your own thing. You can do what you like, as long as it's within the boundaries of Onah, that you're not charging more than the market price. But as far as the amount of profit that you're making, if Beit Din are not involved, then there's no limit. Now, there are some things which Beit Din can get involved in. There's a famous Mishnah Bura in the beginning of Hilchos Shabbos, that if the fish sellers are putting up the price of fish, then the Beit Din has power to make a gezerah that people aren't going to eat fish on Shabbat for a few weeks until the price settles down and people realize that they can't just charge what they like. They can't think that just because we Jews have to have fish on Erev Shabbat that they can charge whatever price they like. Right? So we see that there is place for a gezerah, for gezerahs based in even in our times, where they have that power. Monopoly power is something that the Torah comes out against, where it's being used against the benefit of the consumer, also to form a cartel, artificially causing prices to rise. These are all things that are also. These are all things that, based in where they have the power, should be getting involved with and making